thank you very much for coming so close to your honeymoon.
Yes.
Because you're just very recently back.
I got married last Saturday. It's, Thursday today?
Thursday, I think.
Yeah, I'm back on tour. I was in Andover yesterday, so I had a couple of days honeymoon. We might do something down the line somewhere, but no, we kind of wanted to get married at Easter, and the tour was already in, so it's not... it's good to be... I only need 2 days off, and then more than that I get itchy.
So you squeezed it in the tour?
Yeah, well, there was sort of 4 or 5 days off, maybe 6 days off, so, I had my stag night on Good Friday, married on Easter Saturday, honeymoon on the Sunday, Monday and Tuesday, and then Andover back down to earth, and now Cardiff, which is a bit of a bigger gig. The Andover gig was a very tiny gig, so...
How many seats was that?
It's about 250, but only about 100 people came to that one, so it's,
okay.
On the whole, this tour's been...
It's quite
selling pretty well, but it's kind of on moving up. It's kind of odd that Andover, I've been there quite a few times and it hasn't really, if anything, that was a bit down on last year, which is quite unusual. But it might be because it's Easter week, or you never know what's going on. There's a lot of they do seem to do a lot of comedy there, so maybe people had spent their comedy budget going to see John Richardson, who was on there the day before me, I think. So, but yeah, on the whole, this tour's each tour's gradually building.
Yeah.
So it's quite unusual to do half full theatres or a third full theatres. It almost was last night.
Yeah, I suppose because it was 100 seats that night, and then how big's?
Well, so David Hall is big again, but I won't have sold it out. So
Okay.
I think it's 700 or 800 seats. So if I can get 300 or 400 anywhere, I'm pretty happy. I was kind of hoping this is the first time in Cardiff that I've often played the bar at St David's Hall, which is about 200 or 300 seats. So it's quite a big room, but I've got quite a big following in Cardiff, but the hall is much bigger. I was on the Glee Club for the last couple of years, which is sold out, and now I'm back at St David's. This is the first time I've played the main room, so it would have been nice to sell a bit more than I've done, but we'll see. It might have picked up today.
Did you still do Chapter though? Chapter arts?
Well, I haven't done it for a little while. We usually film the DVDs there, but I've tended to do them. This year I did the DVD at the Bloomsbury, which is in London. Which is not, big 550. So the thing with Chapter, it's such a tiny little room. Again, it's like 110 seats or something. So it's quite hard to get the kind of impetus going. So often those Chapter Arts DVDs, the audience are sort of sitting there quite quietly, and they like to put shots of people not enjoying it and stuff and Go Faster Stripe. So it's kind of nice. Last year I did the LS Square Theatre, which is kind of a bigger theatre.
Is it because they're bigger shows? Are they?
Well, I just think you get more of an atmosphere, and also it means people are. I think with the Cardiff ones, it splits your audience a bit if you do like a Cardiff gig and then you do these DVD records. There's often another couple hundred people, so it's partly to do with those logistics. I mean, I might do another one there, but it's kind of nicer doing it in a big theatre, the big stage. I think the Bloomsbury one's going to look pretty amazing. It looks like a proper stand-up video DVD rather than a man filming it in a tiny basement.
But then are you worried that it comes too mainstream then? Because a lot of people... No,
because I think it's not bad. It's about what the content is rather than... how it looks, I think, but if it creates about, typically I did 2 shows at the Bloomsbury, and the second one was much better than the first, but we recorded the first one, but it was fine. But I think you just get a better, like last night to 100 people, it's very hard to get a room of 100 people laughing in a bigger room, so it was a very quiet gig, and you've got to kind of just steamroller through and hope that they're enjoying it internally, which I think they were, but it's, but then it affects the performance. So if you've got 500 people and they're all really laughing, that buoys you up and you do a much better performance. So it's partly about that, really. If you've got 100 people, you're bound to kind of get nervous, and you're thinking, oh, this is the DVD, You still think that, whatever you're doing, you still think, oh, God, this is the DVD. Every time you do it, you think, this is the version this everyone's going to see. I made loads of them, I've done this show 150 times, and it really got into, I messed around with it a little bit, but it really got set in loads of places, and I got the vocabulary and everything completely sorted out. And then it just all kind of went out the window on the DVD, and I kept on changing little words here and there for no reason, which I couldn't understand, So it was not on purpose. It just came out slightly differently, not badly, just differently.
And you're constantly thinking as you're doing it, this is being recorded.
Yeah, you're thinking this is the one everyone's going to see. Oh, why have I messed up that line? I've messed up the best joke in the show, and that's the one. Sometimes you do 2 recordings of it and do the best of between the 2, but we couldn't. Because of the budget, so this one's back to being completely Go Faster Stripe again. The last couple I've done with a distribution company, so we can't really afford. The theatre charge you to film, and so you can't really afford to film both, and you have to pay the cameraman and everything. So it's done on a very tight budget, but you don't have to sell many with Go Faster Stripe for it to pay off, and then you start, and then I make 50% of everyone that's sold. Whereas if you do it in the shops, I don't think Peter Kay is going to be making more money even just getting £1 off every DVD. But you will get like a tiny percentage of what's sold. So it's kind of a much nicer way of doing it. I think it seems to have really worked it's just nice for me that, you know, I'm really not in this for the money, which it's nice if you make money. I don't turn the money down, but I'm in it to create good shows and get my stuff out there. So it's just great that a show exists, you know. So Go Faster Stripe, who are based here in Cardiff, you know, kind of gave us this opportunity to get all the shows filmed that never would have been, you know, and most of these shows, probably it wouldn't have been, you know, Hit and Moustache, I think we might have got a DVD deal out, but we could only do Hit and Moustache because we did it through the Go Faster Stripe economy.
And you've done it before. And
but you know, but it's with Go Faster Stripe, the entrance fee from the gig pays for the cameramen basically,
right.
And you know, and then you have to pay, you know, so it's all very tightly put together. Whereas if you are, you know, if you're Sarah Millican and you're doing it at the Apollo, there'll be someone will have paid you a massive amount of money, which you will use to film it properly. You'll probably spend £50,000 to £100,000 filming it. Let's say it's 20 to 50. I have no idea what it is. But when we did Fist of Fun on video, Lee and Herring on video years ago, you know, there was a big budget, and you'd spend at least half of it just filming, you know, and you might keep some of the money, but then you make money if it sells lots and lots. But you know, with this, it's a very sort of small budget thing. So you can't. So you know, it probably would have been nicer to have a couple of shots of it. You can do it by doing two in a night, which is what we did at Chapter Arts Centre. But often, all that happens usually is the second one you're really tired.
Yeah,
so, you know,
just loses momentum.
Yeah.
Is it?
So with Hit and Moustache, we did. I think Hit and Moustache was the last one we did at Chapter, and we did 2 recordings of it. In the end, we just used the first one. I think. I thought, you know, it felt on the night that the second half of the first one was best, and the first half of the second half. But you looked at the second show, but you looked at them and they just didn't match up.
I suppose it takes the pressure off a little bit. Maybe it serves.
Well, if you make a mistake, you can, you know. But different audiences react in different ways, and you know, you just get. You know, I just looked tired in the second one, to be honest. And you know, it's usually in the middle of a big tour, and you're tired anyway. And it's, you know, all these shows are 90, 100 minutes long. So to do it twice with just 10 minutes off in between, it's very hard to get the requisite energy up again. And I think it's increasingly I've realised, you know, that. I mean, I toured on my own this year, and I'm not going to do it again. Where I did all the driving and tour managing and everything myself, and you just get too tired to do the show properly. You know, I mean, I don't think I've done any terrible performances of it, but you're aware that you're just not on top form, and I think you need to think, well, I need to make sure the show is as good as it possibly can be.
I suppose it gets a bit lonely as well, doesn't it?
It does. I'm used to it now, but it is. I mean, I think, like, weirdly enough, when I was single 6 or 7 years ago, I think touring to, you know, driving around the country on my own and playing to really tiny audiences a lot of the time, and, you know, 1 in 3 gigs probably not really working. That's kind of more lonely, and you sort of think, oh, you're single, you can go out and have fun and get drunk and meet people. You just don't, you know, you can't go out. If you go drinking with your audience, it's kind of you're just in this. You know, it's sort of like this. You know, like you would be like this without the cameras. You'd be asking me. I'd be wanting to wind down, and you'd be asking me, you know, what was it like being in Fist of Fun? And so, you know, it just was, that was, you know, you spend a lot of time in hotels, like bars, like, this is a nice hotel that I've generally been staying in. You know, and you'll be in some, you know, bar on your own having a glass of wine or whatever after a gig. So you get used to it, but it's weirdly harder, I think, now. You know, now you're in a relationship, I kind of miss being at home with my girlfriend and my wife.
You've got to get it right now.
I've got to get it right now, and although that's a confusion in the show because I've got to keep it girlfriend in the show.
So you've got a through line.
Yeah, well, there's a sort of story in the show, so it's kind of last night's show was slightly confusing because I think for myself I was sort of thinking, oh, they know that I'm married now, and you know I've got a wedding ring, so people will spot it. And
but people are forgiving.
I think they are, but I think in fact it was all in my own head. I think, you know, you get comedians get like this, you know, there'll be a review and one of the jokes will be mentioned in the review, and then they'll convince themselves the whole audience knows the joke, and then it ruins the joke. But actually, I think most of them don't. But you, just because you're thinking, oh, this is ruined now, it will be ruined, you know. So I was thinking, oh God, the audience are thinking she's not his girlfriend, she's his wife. Whereas 2 or 3 of them might have been, but most of them probably didn't know. You know, when I said I was married at the end of it, it seemed a surprise to most people. So I think a lot of it's inside your head. But yes, but anyway, yes, it's kind of weird and you know. In fact, now we're married, it feels even worse. Funnily enough, that because obviously just been on honeymoon, it's kind of a bit more of a wrench to kind of go away again. But you know, we see each other a lot. She's a comedian as well, so we have a lifestyle where we spend a lot of more time together in different times of the year.
But I suppose you got married and you're doing a show about love as well. So
yes.
It's sort of
well, it was all part. You know, I'd like to do shows about what I'm thinking about really, and I think, you know, this show came out of me partly. It partly came out of Christ on the Bike, where at the end I suggested love was the same as religion, that we all believe in the unprovable, made-up, delusional things, and that possibly love is. I've always thought that love and religion probably come from a similar place. You know, that they're this kind of. You know, it is this kind of faith, it's this, you know, falling in love with someone you completely believe that they're the person for you, and it's it's got a similar. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the same part of the brain that's operating as religion. You know? So it partly came out of that, and it partly came out because I've been with my girlfriend at the time for 3 years, and you know, so I was thinking, you know, what's the next step, and you know, do I want to take that next step, and why haven't I taken that step? So that's partly what the show. So you know, I like to take a subject I'm thinking a lot about. So it's and then kind of investigate it. And I just thought, you know, I thought love's one of those things that we all think we know what it is, but if you stop and think about it for 30 seconds, you absolutely kind of it blows your mind because you realise you don't know what it is. There's no definition, you know, different. You know, it's different for everyone.
Abstract, yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of, you know, sort of slightly terrifying. It's one of these things we take for granted as being the most important thing about life, and yet we don't really know anything about it. So I realised it was going to be an interesting subject, and you know, again, when I was choosing about this time last year what I was going to do the subject about this time, you know, I had a few different ideas, but this one was that, you know, a couple of things had come up that are in the show. I did a couple of blogs, one about my dry cleaners having "We Love Our Customers" on the back of their printed on their stuff, and one about this Ferrero Rocher thing that I do that I've been buying my fiancée, my wife now. The Ferrero Rochers every Valentine's Day.
Yeah, no, I think I saw you do that in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
I think it was some big gig in a hall.
Oh yes, and
and
then it got interrupted halfway through.
Yeah.
It probably won't get interrupted. Well, it usually works. It is a bit of an elaborate routine, sort of a 10-minute routine about exponential mathematics, basically. So it's kind of not. You wouldn't think it would necessarily work in clubs, but it nearly always has. But that was one of the occasions where a very drunk man got annoyed because there's 5 minutes of build-up to it, which I think is still amusing, but it's not. It all pays off in the second half of the routine. So you didn't see any of the really funny stuff because I kind of changed the routine. I kind of took a punt because it was going quite. I thought that it's late night and they're a bit drunk, so I did my kind of jokes that they all seemed to be going well. I thought, they seem clever and smart. And, you know, you make these decisions, and then you know I just sensed the minute I got into it that the audience weren't really ready for it. And then, but it's one of those things you can't really get out of once you started it.
Yeah, it's so.
But it's I think, you know, it's one of my. I think it's probably the favourite sort of more comedic routine out of this show, and it's, you know, I think each of the last 2 or 3 shows have had like a big central routine that I kind of consider to be one of my you know, probably the top 3 routines I've done, and I think that Ferrero Rocher is one of them. I think the genealogy in Christ on a Bike is, you know, one of my favourite routines where I take part the first page of the New Testament, and the routine in Hitler Moustache about why liberals are more racist than racists is also really a really nice routine, I think. So, you know, I think that's the sort of second half of this current show. I think has 2 or 3 kind of quite big barnstorming routines in it. So it's kind of nice to have those. But yeah, that you saw one of the rare occasions that didn't work.
Yeah,
so
I know,
that sounds like I'm lying now. I saw that, it didn't work.
No, it was good to see you sort of take the heckler apart and
yeah,
seeing
well,
how
people
you
like
deal with it.
I mean, people like that, but it's so, you know, I'd rather do the stuff.
Yeah, but then those gigs are so difficult, aren't they? Because they're just so big and it's just such a mix.
Well, yeah, it can be.
Yeah,
yeah, that's it. I mean, it's a late night gig, and people just come to see comedy, and they might be there to see someone else on the bill, and they might just, you know, they might not know who anyone is. They're just seeing comedy. So with some people, they think stand-up has got to be jokes. So some people come and see this live. You know, I've had a couple of gigs at weekends where there's been some drunk people in, and they're kind of surprised that this show isn't jokes. You know, they think this show is stories, and this show is, you know, humour out situation, out character, and out of phrasing and language. It's not bang, 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 joke. So sometimes people get, you know, upset. Or, you know, so one of the shows in Yorkshire, someone heckled just good-naturedly during this very poignant, sad, but right at the wrong point in this thing, and I completely lost my temper with them because they kind of wrecked this thing. But then someone else was saying, "Well, isn't this your job? It's your job, and this is your job." And so then I took her apart, and then she got upset that I said I thought it was my job to do this. I was just doing my job, but you know, it isn't my job to. It isn't my. I don't see it as my job. People. I don't see it as my job to deal with idiots in the audience. And drunken idiots in the audience, and you know, I don't mind doing it because I'm quite good at it.
You can do it, yeah.
But it's easy, and it's much easier than people give it credit for. So people are much more impressed with that than they are with you. You know, people go, "Well, this is all." The thing we're showing is shows are very structured. You're going, "Yeah, that's what I'm." You know, can you not see that I can do both? I do completely ad lib shows. So if I do a structured show, I've made that decision to do that because I want to do a structured show. The structured shows will still change, you know. They're still fluid, and I'm perfecting it right up to the end and changing things right at the end, just trying to find the funniest possible way of doing it. And it's very subtle. It's, you know, I will change the inflections and the pace and the volume, and sometimes a word, sometimes just, you know, a pause.
It interests you almost more than just to keep you...
It keeps you interested in it, and I do find it fascinating. But it is, you know, but it's also just a way of trying to make the show. You will sometimes. It's like a song without, you know, it's sort of like a song or a poem or something. So you'll find the correct way to do something, and then that might always stay exactly the same or more or less the same. But you're always, you're never going to hit every single joke every night completely right. And there's so many different things you're juggling, and some nights it all does nearly come together, and it feels like you've kind of nearly got it completely right. But it's much more complicated than people realise, I think. And I think I don't see the problem with doing. Most shows and most comedians who you think are ad-libbing aren't ad-libbing.
It's all an act. Yeah.
Yeah, some of them are. But I mean, I think I probably ad-lib more than most comedians. For instance, I'm fairly good off the cuff.
I suppose it comes with experience as well, that you're so relaxed that you can do that.
Yeah, well, you get to know what you're doing, so you know that once you know the show, you can then rip it apart and try new things, or just go off in a certain direction or something. Yeah. Just something suddenly occurs to you. I write nearly all of, I don't write anything really. I mean, I write the blog and sometimes I use stuff from that, but I really just make it up on stage and then do it night after night and find the way to tell the story, and then it sort of coalesces into a form and becomes the story happens in this order, and you work out where the fat that you can take out is and where it needs a joke and where you can speed it up, and but you're working that out bit by bit. So I don't sit down and write it, so it isn't a script, it isn't structured in that sense. So in a way it is an ad-lib show. It's just that it's become more set, more permanent than it would have been.
I suppose it's good to kind of exist as a live piece, because you see some people that they have written it. Yeah. It just doesn't quite fit. Whereas if it's always existed in the live.
Yeah. You do find. You find there are things in this show that I could never work out why they were exactly as funny as they were, but they become funny. If you sat down and wrote them, they wouldn't be funny, but they do kind of work in their own. Sometimes a little mistake gets a laugh and stays in. And sometimes they turn out to be the biggest laughs. So there's no. It's a very organic experience, and it's never, I think it's Alfred Hitchcock, it maybe lots of people said it, a project's never perfected or finished, it's just abandoned, and that's how I feel about it. You do this, it's slightly annoying once you've done it. I really like to do the DVD right at the end, because otherwise, in the next 10 performances I might come up with a fantastic way of doing something that I've subsequently, and there are some bits that are just, that I'm still experimenting with. In one show it will go brilliantly, and another show it won't, because I don't write it down, I don't listen back to it, I just try and recall, the next day and some days it'll take a week for me to go, what's the bit that I'm trying to get right, and then I'll go, oh, it's that bit, and I might go back and think, what's the word I need here, and then you'll discover, you think, but often you think better in that kind of clear white heat of performing.
Yeah, so have you tried recording them?
I do, but I can't be bothered to. I either can't be bothered, or I just get bored, it's too annoying.
Yeah, because you did it that night, you don't want to listen to it again.
No, and some comedians do that, and some comedians make someone write down all their ad libs, and I think if it's good enough, generally you will remember what you did.
You pick it up.
But sometimes it's just, even if you got it and did it exactly the same, it wouldn't work the same, because it was just something in that night, it's something that's happened before, just the mood of the audience. So sometimes a brilliant ad lib, you think, oh great, this will stay in, and then you do it a couple more times and it never works again. And sometimes it becomes part of the show. But so you just, I do find that fascinating, and I do, I can do a show 150 times no problem now. Whereas I think 10 years ago, when we did Lee and Herring, we used to get even though we didn't do massive long tours, and even though we deliberately tried to mess the other one around and change it, we'd still get quite bored quite quickly with the routine. And I think we weren't working as hard as maybe we could have done, but now I don't, I can't remember, last night was the closest I got to being on stage thinking, oh, this is really hard work tonight for this whole tour, but that used to happen all the time. It was either hard work or I just was too tired, or I wanted to go home, or I wanted to speed through it so I could go home. So it's kind of, I find that process interesting. I guess that what keeps you interested as a performer, but hopefully it improves the show.
Yes.
So you can break it. You can keep stretching a joke, and so often a routine will come and go during the course of a tour, because you'll be stretching, it'll be getting funnier and funnier, and then you'll stretch it too far and it breaks, and you never get back to what was working in there. So there's, in Christ on a Bike, there's a couple, because that was a very long tour. There's a couple of routines that just I got bored of and or didn't, or lost what was funny in them.
So are there some that you're sad when you lose them? You think you could have taken them further, or?
No, I mean, I think when you lose them, you probably take them as far as they'll go. I think with the Christ on a Bike, there was a great routine I was doing based on letters that I'd received and emails I'd received, and then when I came to do it in the DVD record, I kind of had lost a piece of the paper, and it really threw me and I messed up, so we couldn't use it in the DVD, and it was my favourite. It was like my favourite routine. And I think we had some recordings from elsewhere that were like audios of it, so it sort of survived. So that's, if you mess up the DVD, there's not much you can do. If you really mess up, that's the only time I've ever really messed something up that badly that I can't use it.
But then I suppose it is quite nice that there was something in the live show that only existed as a live.
Yeah,
thing.
I guess. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I think also every performance is different, and you can have the DVD, and that's nice to have, and it's nice if you haven't been able to see it, it's great to be able to see it, and you'll get most of what you'll get out of the show. But what's great about stand-up is every show is different, and that's it. So last night's audience they didn't consider themselves a hard audience. I wrote a blog about it, and oh, sorry, we didn't know you were difficult. From their perspective, they're not, because they don't see it every night, so they don't know they're quiet, they don't know what people usually laugh at. But everyone's different, so and so you will get like moments in comedy that are never repeated, and maybe seen by 30 people, and that's it. And maybe some of them remember it, maybe they won't. It's a very throwaway thing, But it's also, I love doing the live stuff, and I didn't used to. I wasn't that bothered about doing the live stuff, but the live stuff is for me what it's all about. And so you create that moment that night. People go away, have a good time, and maybe they'll remember it, maybe they won't. But it's not there for the, it's not a thing set in permanent stone. It's there to laugh and release something and then move on, and if you forget it doesn't actually matter.
Because didn't you used to say that you weren't that comfortable on stage, that it was quite an awkward thing for you?
It wasn't really that I wasn't comfortable, it's just I didn't really like doing stand-up on my own. I was kind of at university, we did sketches, and I kind of convinced myself that I was more into acting and doing that kind of stuff and doing stuff with other people. I didn't really, when I moved to London in 1989 and started doing stand-up, I didn't really. There's a long story behind it already, but it's about kind of student comedy versus stand-up, and there was this kind of these divisions drawn, and I kind of had a bad time in Edinburgh in 1988 or whatever it was, and with the stand-ups kind of having a go at us for being student comedy, and so I think I had a block the other way, so I didn't really like stand-up, and then I've been used to working with other people, and so when I came to do stand-up on my own, I wasn't really enjoying it. On the whole, I did it for a couple of years, and it was sort of successful some of the time. But I couldn't really work out what I wanted to do with it, so I kind of left it behind in order to do the double act and just radio and TV stuff. So coming back to stand up was a big deal for me because I was scared of falling on my own. Even though I'd done Christ on the Bike and Talking Cock and 12 Tasks for Hercules Terrace by then, but I still didn't consider them stand up exactly. So coming back and doing stand up was both a terrifying thing, but I think a massive turning point in my kind of professional career as well. Because I think without that I wouldn't. I don't know what I'd be doing if I hadn't come back to stand-up really. And now stand-up's my main focus in my job, And if I do anything else, it's to get people to come and see the stand-up.
So is that always going to be the focus? I mean, can you envisage a time when, say, if you wrote something that really took off, that would become your focus rather than the stand-up? Or
I want to carry on writing, and I want to write TV and stuff like that. But I would. It's only a matter of physically being able to tour, I suppose, and physically being able to do it. So it's just, as you get older, it just gets more draining and harder to do that stuff. But I can't. Maybe when I'm 70, I won't be able to, I might concentrate on writing. But for the moment, as I'm still capable of doing the stand-up, that's what my focus is. So if I wrote a sitcom or a comedy drama, I would still, you might say I've got to have I have to have a year off from touring because I'm working on this show. But I'd need it to be something like that because now I don't make much money from anything else I do other than that. The touring pays for my whole year, and I make enough money now. Only in the last 2 or 3 years I make enough money now to live off for the year from doing the shows. It's sort of 6 months of the year, I suppose, with Edinburgh and previews and and then touring it. But that will create enough revenue that means I can then do other stuff. I mean, I'll earn stuff from other things as well, but a lot of things I'm doing, probably 80% of my work I'm giving away for nothing really.
Yeah, I mean, I think the time in Edinburgh actually pays for it. When you come back for a profit, that must be just such an amazing.
Well, it is. I mean, it wasn't even it wasn't even a possibility really. I mean, a couple of shows where we did on a very cheap budget kind of made money early on, but basically until I guess it would have been maybe Oh Fucking 40 or Menage and around that time when I moved to the Underbelly, I suddenly wasn't losing money. I might make £1,000 from this. Month's work, but then in the last, but once it's the bigger audience is getting, and working at the stand with one of my shows, you can make money there, and so actually last Edinburgh, I mean, it's still on average I'm down. On aggregate I'm down.
All of them together.
But the last Edinburgh was actually, you can see the people who are going up there and doing massive shows must be coining it in, whereas most people, if they sold every ticket, would still lose £10,000. So it's most newer acts. But it's taken me this is my 21st Edinburgh this year, so it took me 15. It took me 15 or 16 Edinburghs to actually get to the point where I wasn't losing money, and then you're still not making enough to really justify the time. But then now, even if I lost money in Edinburgh, which hopefully I won't do anymore, by then taking the show on tour and doing the DVD and all the other things around it, and with previewing now, I mean those days I was doing plays and one man shows that I would do 6 previews of. and now I preview for 2 months, and I'll get paid a little bit for every preview as well. So you're actually still earning money all the time. So it all adds up basically, and having the DVD and then being able to sell the DVD at gigs out brings in a little bit more money. So it all kind of adds up and becomes, a very comfortable living and a nice living, but very dependent on you're only as good as your last show. So people don't come back.
Well, you're in the Big Cow this year, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. So
is that's scary.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. Again, it's by far the biggest
400
room I've done. Yeah, 400. So I do about 325 with Christ on a Bike, and so the thing is, if you have that numbers on the nights you sell out, you'll sell it out. But on the other nights you might not. So it might look empty on other nights. But it means that you give you a chance of selling more tickets. I mean, the last couple of years, I've sold probably an average of about 300 tickets a night, maybe a little bit under that. So it's only. If I can boost it up a little bit, if I can boost it up 50 more, then that's going to be absolutely fine. And it doesn't actually make any difference. I could be in a 300-seater venue and sell 290 tickets, or a 400-seater venue and sell 290 tickets. It won't make any difference to what I earn because of the way it works out. So it's better to have those extra 110 seats and sell them some of the time. Because if I sell out 2 or 3 times, that's essentially another gig.
No, I see. It is in a tent though, isn't it? So. Acoustic. I remember because Stuart played there once, and he was really concerned about the sound. Stu gets very concerned about these things. I mean, I think I can understand it. He does get quite precious about that. And I've played. I've done the venue in London and in Edinburgh. I've played it. I can understand. It's all right. I mean, it's nice to have that many people. I think what happens is the sound goes. You just got to. You've just got to accept, this is what we're talking about, that every gig is different, and if you can't hear the laughter, it doesn't necessarily mean they're not laughing. So it's nicer to be in a room where you can hear this rolling laughter and everything's focused on you and the ceiling's low and it's all coming towards you. But if it's not, you just have to kind of still perform as if it is, Yeah, so, I mean, I suppose that you've still got the stank gigs, haven't you, that you've still got that intimate feeling, but then you've also got a kind of bit more of a spectacle as well.
Hopefully, we'll see. You're taking a bit of a punt, and the thing with Edinburgh now is I kind of can choose where I go more or less. All the venues will offer me a venue, and they're all about the same size, and that's a nice situation to be in. And hopefully it should do all right. It's an Olympic year, which might affect sales.
They're hoping for a bit more, aren't they?
Well, I think it might cut back because people stay in, or people, tourists might go to London rather than Edinburgh, so. It might affect things, but it may be on newer. I don't really like going too big in terms of numbers because you're kind of thinking I don't want to steal the audience from everyone else. But I think also there is an element of you have to think of your own career and your own profits as well. But I don't see the point of like big stars going to Edinburgh and doing 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 seats.
It seems needless, yeah.
Well, you just can go the next day after Edinburgh. You don't need to go during the Fringe.
No. But it's Talking Cock, is it? Yeah. So is that going to be the last show that you bring back?
Well, yes, I think so, because all the others are on. I mean, there's a couple I did in the 90s, but I don't think they're really retrievable.
Not worthy, really.
But no, it's a show that never got on DVD, and I think, again, I felt with Christ on the Bike, both those, Christ on the Bike and Talking Cock, I thought were both really great shows, and they got a sort of credit at the time, and not quite as much as I thought they deserved. And Talking Cock nearly kind of, got sold all over the world, and felt like it was about to become this kind of global phenomenon, and then it didn't quite happen. But it's never been on DVD, and I think a lot of the people coming to see me now didn't see those shows. So it's partly about wanting to... What I really enjoyed with Christ on the Bike was going back, and there was loads of stuff I really loved in that show, but then I created new stuff for it and changed it. And, it was more of it stayed than I imagined would, because it was quite good, so it was held together quite well. So it's just nice to go back and have a second look at it. I think with the penis, I think as an older man, my focus may have changed a bit on. I think you may have a new perspective on what it's for and what you use it and how it works. So
is penis in general, or is it specifically to your penis?
It's not. It's about everyone's penis. It's less about my own penis than probably any other show I've ever done.
Okay.
I think it might be. I mean, I might make it a bit more personal, but I did like and I'll do it again. I did a questionnaire, and so there's statistics from 5,000 or 6,000 people who filled in, and stories from other people and stuff like that. So it's not actually. It came out being I've seen the Vagina Monologues, and wanting to do a male version of that was a bit more inclusive of everyone rather than it's not like a man's show. It's a show for men and women, and about our mutual enjoyment and amusement about the penis. But it just felt like it'd be great to get that show on DVD and tour it again, and allow. I think both with Christ on the Bike and this, you feel the people who saw it would quite like to see it again 10 years on, and loads of people haven't seen it, so it's like doing a new show in those terms. It gives me a little breather in terms of not having to think up a brand new show, but I probably would do as much work as I would do on a brand new show anyway, and I had loads of other ideas. So I'm only doing it this year because it feels right to do it on the 10th anniversary. I want to do. My plan is to do sort of 10 years in a row in Edinburgh where I do 10 completely different shows. So this is the 9th one of the 10 because I did Talking Cock and Christ on the Bike and then had a year off. So from 2004 onwards, I did Hercules Terrace, and then this will be the 9th show in a different show in a row. So I need to do another show next year. And I can't think of anyone who's really done 10 kind of full-on, completely different stand-up shows that all went to DVD in 10 years. So that's that. I'd quite like to do that. That means I've got to think of one more show after this.
Yeah. So how far ahead do you think? Have you had any thoughts yet? Or?
I had another idea for a show this year about disability because I did Radio 4 show about disability. Then I had all this stuff happen with Ricky Gervais fans calling me a Mong. But then in the end, it felt like that didn't feel. It already felt like too long ago to do a show about that. But I'm quite interested in doing a show about disability from a non-disabled perspective and not yet disabled perspective. But you just see what sort of comes along, really. I mean, it'd be interesting to see whether being married or whatever has any effect on what I want to write about. But no, I generally decide around about this time. Like you've got to make a decision sort of February about what you're doing. I usually leave it right until sometimes you kind of go, okay, I've got it. And with Talking Cock, I hadn't completely decided, but with Talking Cock, I'd more or less decided I was going to do that this year, so I kind of knew what was coming up with this year. But yeah, I like to leave it open, and you never know. You can throw in some surprises. Well, I'm doing the podcast show as well. Might do. I kind of want to do a Me 1 versus Me 2 live show.
I think that would be interesting.
Yeah, but we might do that this year. I might do it next year. We'll see.
Well, thanks very much.
No, my pleasure.
It's been brilliant.
Cheers,
shake your hands, get the handshake shot. That's great.
All the best. Cool.
Thanks very much.
No
That's
problem.
awesome.
Nice one.
Mm-mm.